often said that there's no such thing as a bad plant, only a bad use of a plant or operator error in using a plant. That said, the topic today might surprise you, but these are 5 plants I will never plant again for different reasons. And my question of the day for you is, what plant will you never plant again for whatever reason? And some of those reasons, there may be many and varied reasons for that, but these are some of the reasons I will never plant these 5 plants again. And here is my number 1. I will never again plant any hydrangea that blooms on old wood, because I've had my heart broken way too many times. I've got some old-fashioned hydrangeas here that bloom on old wood, which means that every year that we have a late frost or a very, very early cold snap, it kills off any of the nascent buds that would bloom into flowers. And there's been so many times when I've had really great, fat, voluptuous buds that never made it to fruition because we had a really late cold snap. So from now on, I'm going to only plant hydrangeas that bloom on new wood, which means more hydrangea paniculatas, more smooth hydrangeas, hydrangea arborescens, and some of the mopheads that are in the Southern Living Plant Collection. I'll put a link to that, and it will tell you whether or not those bloom on new wood. I, of course, love White Wedding and Tara, love oak leaf hydrangeas in general. But some of these in here that bloom on old wood on this end, I'm actually going to be digging out, and I will never again plant a hydrangea that blooms on old wood because I'm tired of my heart being broken. Let's move on to number 2. Well, another plant that I will never plant again is something called Mazus reptans, and I'm not even sure what its common name is. It has the potential to be a sweet little ground cover that puts out these dainty little violet flowers, but it just goes to seed so vigorously. It really gets to be obnoxious, especially later in the season when it starts doing this. It gets very straggly, and it also tends to attract spider mite. You can see it in here, and I'm slowly removing all of it. It also tends to kind of intertwine and seems to grow in the same conditions as kind of this weedy clover that I also don't like. Now, I have told you this tip before, and I'll tell you it again. I did it yesterday, quite a bit of it actually, and that's I fired up my tea kettle in the afternoon when I had my afternoon cup of tea, and I came out and I just poured all sorts of boiling water on some of the ground cover in here, and that tends to really kill it at the root zone. Sometimes it takes multiple applications, but you can see in here that here's some kind of vigorous, healthy Mazus reptans and also some clover. And you can see over here where yesterday I poured some boiling water on it. So it really does work. Again, sometimes it takes multiple applications, but especially with clover. Stuart, if you'll come down here, you'll see I get masses of clover that starts to grow into the turf, into the artificial turf. And so I just pour boiling water on it, and it works brilliantly because you know how difficult it is to pull out clover. So even though I have seen Mazus reptans used well, I saw it once in Dallas Botanical Garden. It was just absolutely gorgeous, but I don't know how they contained it. And for me, it's more problematic than it is problem solving. So I don't care if sometimes it looks sweet. Down the line, it causes me too many problems, and that sweet turns to sour. So never again am I going to plant Mazus reptans. Now, I realize that some of these are controversial and plants that I will never plant again, you may absolutely love, and that's perfectly fine because actually it's all about what we want growing in our own gardens. But for me, plants that cause me more problems down the line are ones that I'm trying to eradicate and definitely will not plant again. And this one kind of pains me to say so because I really think it's got so much to commend it. And this is just the common garlic chives, partly because the pollinators absolutely love it. I do use it in cooking. I love taking this and chopping it up and putting it into cream cheese. I like using these as cut flowers, but it just takes over. It goes to seed way too aggressively and it causes me problems. It comes up in all sorts of places that I don't want it to come up. It might be a solution to plant it in containers, but Stuart, if you don't mind showing down here, you can see where it has just gone to seed in all sorts of places, and it's really difficult to remove because it often grows up, its root ball intertwines with other things that I want to keep. For example, right here, some of it has gone to seed and it's grown up into this bondo grass. So even though it kind of pains me to say it, I would never intentionally plant it again. I will just put up with what I've got though, because again, the pollinators love it and there's a soft spot in my heart for them. So there you go. My number 3, is that number 3, Stuart? Garlic chives. I'd never plant them again. And yes, originally I did plant them intentionally. Now I've mentioned this before, but I'm going to mention it again. And I think it's particularly an issue with new gardeners because when I first started to garden, I was just thrilled if I could get anything to grow. It really didn't matter what it was. And if it put out a sweet little purple flower, then it was particularly compelling to me. And so I made the mistake of planting some violets, which then way too aggressively spread. Yes, they do put out sweet little flowers in the spring, but they just go everywhere. And I am still constantly pulling them out and removing them. So don't make the mistake, especially if someone offers to transplant some of them from their garden into your garden. Just be wary of their generosity because I promise you, you will regret it later. They will start going everywhere, into your turf, they will just spread obnoxiously, and you don't want that. The other plant I mentioned before, I'm going to mention again, this is going to be very controversial because I know so many people love them, and this is kind of a freebie, and that's daylilies. I just don't think that I would ever plant daylilies again because they just look too scruffy and they don't have that 4 seasons of really good looks that I demand. So that's just kind of an extra little tip. Daylilies probably wouldn't be on my list either. So that was my number 4, never plant violets. Unless, of course, maybe they're, okay, I'm gonna get some grief on this. So let me say, if they are hybridized violets that aren't wild violets that spread carefully, then yes, that would be the exception. So don't write me a nasty comment. But if they're just these wild violets, no, you don't want to plant them in your garden. You will regret it. Well, this is kind of dangerous, Stuart, because I'm standing in this spot and I see all sorts of work that needs to be done, but I think we're supposed to have a cool down next week, so I am definitely going to tackle some of these chores. But this is my number 5, and I have really come full circle on this. There was a time when I used to be a real purist, and I did not want to plant Encore Azaleas because I thought I just was kind of an absolutist, and I thought azaleas should bloom in the spring in their time. But when I started looking at Encore Azaleas as just a completely different type of blooming shrub rather than as an azalea, then it completely transformed my way of thinking, because Encore Azaleas rebloom. Now, before the ice storm, before all of the tree damage, and before the Arctic blast, I had a huge stand in here of the old-fashioned Kurumi regular azaleas. A lot of coral bells, some different colors. But they just all, on several occasions, they succumbed to a late freeze. They really took a hit in the ice storm. And so I decided that I would probably never again plant an azalea that didn't rebloom. And that brings me to Encore Azaleas, because I just think they're more vigorous. They came back better after the ice damage. They bloom at different times of the year. They'll bloom in the spring, and then they'll rebloom in the fall, and even sporadically in the summer. And they're just a better performing plant. They just seem to be a little bit tougher, and they can handle what Mother Nature can throw at her. In other words, they just don't seem so temperamental. So even though I definitely love regular traditional azaleas, for me only, I will probably never plant another one, and I will go with Encore Azaleas instead. So that would be my number 5 plant that I will probably never introduce again into this garden or another. And here's a little bonus commentary. I don't know that this falls into the category of I would never plant it again, but I would definitely plant it cautiously and only certain varieties, and that's spiderwort or tradescantia. Some of you may pronounce it differently. I didn't even plant this. I don't even know how it got here, but it's been rather aggressive, and I have to frequently dig it out because it's become something of a garden thug, these sweet lavender flowers notwithstanding. But this is one I would be really cautious about. There's obviously a number of different varieties in this family, some more thuggish than others. But again, this is one of those that you don't want to look a gift horse in the mouth, but you might want to look at that gift horse skeptically if they offer to transplant some of this from their garden into yours, because it could be a problem down the line. So there you go. There are 5 plus a bonus of things that I will probably never plant again in this garden or a future garden. Well, here is your fashion epilogue for today, and a question on this fashion epilogue. Are you guys enjoying this? Is it worth it for me to continue with these? Just give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So today's fashion epilogue, beginning top to bottom, I guess. These are some earrings I got at one of my favorite shops in Salida, Colorado, called Currents. I don't believe it's there anymore, but I loved that shop. My necklace I made with my friend Jenny many years ago. I think it kind of gives me a hippie vibe, and for some reason I always feel young when I wear it. My overalls I got off of Amazon. I will put a link below, and pretty soon, you guys, we're going to try to be better about having a one-stop shop for you guys on lindavater.com, where you can go and get all of these links instead of having to look for them on these YouTube videos. That said, if you click in the upper right hand corner, there is a little, what kind of icon is it?
It's like a little eye and a circle.
A little eye and a circle, and you can, oh, the other side. Anyhow, you click on it and it will take you to the description box with the links below. My t-shirt is just one that I got. It's just I don't know, just a sleeveless tee that I got, or a tank top that I got, I think, at Target years ago. I've got on a black sports bra that's kind of half t-shirt, half bra. Let's see. I'm thrilled because I just got a new watch band for my iWatch. I couldn't live without my iWatch. It is my step counter, and I like it because I've got very tiny wrists, and I finally found a watch band that fits me that's really important when you're taking your heart rate. My ensemble or my collection, I guess, of bracelets today. This I also got at Currents. This I got on some trip, I can't remember. Buying these kind of just lightweight bracelets is a fun little souvenir that I like to bring back. The turquoise bracelet actually came from my mom. I made this one and I don't remember where this one came from, but I like to compose a little montage of bracelets. And as I said, I seldom ever wear rings when I work out in the garden, but I do sometimes wear bracelets. And my footwear came from Forever 21. So there you go. If you held in this long, there's your fashion epilogue du jour.